committee, but just for a few seconds I'm going to wear another hat. I'm going to wear my MoMA hat and welcome all of you here to the museum. We're wonderful to have you all here. I know many of you have traveled long distances to be here, so welcome to MoMA. Before I start, I'd like to ask everyone involved with Pratham to please stand so we can applaud the work that you do. So could everyone who has an involvement with Pratham, either Pratham US or UK, please get up. I'll say a little more about Pratham, but I'd like to say a few words about the prize. Before doing so, I want to first thank Pamela Gann and your whole team at Claremont McKenna College for being so supportive not only of the Kravis Leadership Institute but of the prize. I especially want to thank Kim Yonker. Kim is the director of the Kravis Prize, and she really leads this whole effort at research and due diligence and really runs the prize for us. So Kim, thank you again for a superb year. And of course, I want to thank Karen Balmer also, who's been very helpful to all of us, and to Kim. I want to thank Richard Rodner. And I also want to thank Sandy DeAndrea in my office, who works with Kim and Richard and Karen getting all of this together. So thank you to all of you. Thank you again. I'd like to thank the nominators. Many of you are here anonymously, of course, and we'd like to keep it that way. But the nominators do tremendous work, not only in identifying candidates, but also in documenting and sustaining material for the candidacies that are studied by the selection committee. And it really is a time-consuming task, and even though this year we accepted some nominations on our website online, we don't just take names. We do expect that those who make nominations provide supporting materials, and that requires research and time. And I want to thank all the nominators and those who nominated online, may be here, some of them may be here. So thank you to everyone. Thank you also to the selection committee. The selection committee made up of Harry McMahon, who also happens to be the chairman of the Kravis Leadership Institute, Jacob Rothschild, Jim Wolfenson, Amartya Sen, and not really a member of the selection committee, but the driving force behind the prize, my husband Henry. And of course, I've mentioned in past years the criteria that the selection committee considers. And at the risk of being repetitive, let me insist on the fact that the really driving criteria is impact. We try to measure outputs. There are many philanthropic endeavors that measure actions or measure dollars spent or measure people reached, but then don't follow through and measure the actual output, whether it is the increase in enrollments, actual graduation rates, actual property rights obtained. And we have tried to develop a methodology. It's a work in progress. It's not perfect, and it continues to evolve, but a methodology that tries to measure the impact, in other words, the output that the organizations that we consider produce. It's a time-consuming effort. We are helped in doing so not only by our permanent staff, but also by the students at Claremont McKenna College, which establishes a real link to the Kravis Leadership Institute. And I want to thank those students for the effort that they provide in doing the research, the due diligence that's so important to this prize. When Henry created had the idea of the Kravis Leadership Institute, I think many people sneered, saying, well, you can't teach leadership. And it's true that there are innate qualities, maybe for example, pertaining to risk-taking or attitudes towards enterprise that are perhaps difficult to teach. But I would argue that we can all learn to think more strategically. We can all learn to think more conceptually. We can all think more effectively or act more effectively. We can learn to act more effectively. And we can all broaden our perspectives and broaden our horizons. And those are really the tasks of the Kravis Leadership Institute and this tie-in with the prize. And speaking of broadening your scope or broadening your perspective, if you think of the people who've received the prize, the Rural Development Institute, or FAWE, or BROC, or the Afghan Institute of Learning, all of them have broadened the horizons of the people that they touch. None of them have been asset-building institutions, building big structures or investing in brick and mortar. They've all been organizations, institutions that have focused on reaching people where they are and changing people's lives. And I can think of no better model to follow in those footsteps than Pratham. Pratham is an extraordinary organization founded only 16 years ago. It is now in 305 villages in India. It reaches 33 million children. But it doesn't only reach them, it follows them. By developing a vast network, working with volunteers, it ensures that those villages have their own human infrastructure to continue to teach, to develop, to bring literacy to those communities that would not have access to education otherwise. Pratham is also active in 43 Indian cities, but I think what most impressed us was the reach that the organization had in these villages and the staying power that it had in these villages. Pratham also lends itself or accepts third-party evaluation. So it has been studied not only internally by its own metrics, but also by MIT and the Hewlett Foundation, and of course has been highly complimented in its efforts and its success in bringing education to parts of the country that had no access to schools or to any form of learning. The institution also is a private-public partnership, which we found very interesting, working with the Mumbai City Corporation, working also with UNICEF, so it has had also some multilateral links, which we found was very interesting. And it also publishes a status of education report, so it has a very active research role and advocacy role in India, so it really touches every aspect that have been the underpinnings of the Kravis Prize. We mentioned that Madham Shavan could not be with us this evening because of a loss in his family, but we have representing Shavan an outstanding woman, a woman who's been with Pratham since 1997, a Rhodes Scholar, a PhD from University of Chicago, a woman who led a number of Pratham programs both in northern and east India, and who's now running the research center of Pratham. So I'd like you to welcome with me the very outstanding, very, very committed, very devoted Mrs. Banerjee, who joined us today, came from India just for this evening, and I'd like to invite you to come and please tell us about Pratham and let us applaud everything that you do.